I'm Sally.
Hi,
And
Beth.
this is my sister Beth. Lynn. So why don't you tell us the history behind that?
I have no idea how I got that name. I think it was Mike, because he still calls me that. But the biggest thing I remember with that was when I went to school, learning how to write my name, and I asked the teacher where the O, how I put that in, and she thought it was very funny. She said, "I don't think that's your name."
So we could talk about how you did get your name. Because you were born.
I was born the same year that Aunt Beth passed away. I'm not sure what date she passed away, but I was born in December, so that's how I got my name.
Just talk about our grandparents a little bit on both sides.
Okay, Grandma and Grandpa Adams, I know they were very judgmental of Mom and Dad having so many kids. And I can remember we'd all be getting ready to go shopping or going to do something, and they'd pull up. Mom would get so upset. No warning, they would just show up. My biggest memory of Grandpa Adams was he used to hold us, and he'd, with his finger, and he'd go around and around, and then he'd tickle us. And Grandma, I remember baking with her when we went there and stayed. Barb and I went there probably when Mom was having one of the kids. And she was making bread, and she'd put the loaf. But I had watched her make cinnamon rolls too. Mm-hmm. So she'd form all these rolls, and she's going, and I'm thinking she's making cinnamon rolls. So I'd pat them down, and then she'd look at it, and she'd put it back up, and I'd pat it down. And finally, she figured out what I was doing, and I can remember her laughing, just laughing, which she didn't do very much of, and a real good belly laugh. So, and I can remember Barb and I walking downtown in Oconto and looking in all the shops, and we went into some of the shops, and of course we didn't buy anything because we had no money. And we got back and told Grandma, and she said, "Well, you didn't go in any of the stores, did you?" "Well, yeah, we did." And so she took us down there right away and bought us each sunsuits, because you don't go in a store and you don't buy anything.
Yeah.
So those are the biggest memories. I remember their 50th, kind of. Mm-hmm. Not a lot, but I remember us being there and the big 50. And Grandma and Grandpa Smits, I remember their booyahs. That's my biggest memory. And them coming over at Christmas and buying us leotards. Mm-hmm. Every year.
Pajamas.
And pajamas.
And sweatshirts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Do you remember anything about their parents?
No, the only story from Mom's side was that she was named Emma Jane after Grandpa's mother. And Grandma changed the name on her birth certificate to June, just so it would be different. And then she always called her June, because she did not like her mother-in-law.
What a surprise.
But I never met them or saw them. Well, think about it. How many of our kids have met Grandma and Grandpa Adams or Grandma and Grandpa Smits? Mm-hmm. So.
Do you remember any of their names of their parents?
Well, Grandpa's mom was Emma Davis, I believe. Emma Jane Davis. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Okay. How about Grandma and Grandpa Smits?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've got some information because I did that DVD way back when. I don't know if you remember, where I did all the kids.
Okay.
and I had some information. I've got stuff in a book I'll show you later.
Okay. That'd be great.
Like Grandma and Grandpa's marriage license, and I've got the thing where they came over from Ellis Island.
Mm-hmm.
But
I have a thing about that too.
yeah,
It's hard to imagine that Grandpa actually came over on the boat.
yeah,
Because it was just so close to our generation.
right,
But he did.
Yeah.
Came over from Holland.
yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Were you close to any of their siblings, any of Grandma and Grandpa Adams or Grandma and Grandpa Smits? Like aunts and uncles, or
Not really. I know I went over with Lori and Joey and Debbie. I spent a night at their house a couple times, and was horrified because Uncle Kenny walked around in his underwear all the time. But no, I remember Uncle Art and them coming over maybe once or twice. They didn't get together a lot.
no?
And I think some of the issue was when Mom and Dad got married, Grandma and Grandpa Smits were not real thrilled with them getting married. And with Grandpa on the other side, they were so critical of everything they did. All the kids they had, it got to the point Mom didn't even want to tell them when she was pregnant. But they always wanted a big family.
They got what they wanted.
They did. And I can remember Mom's never, she said, we always wanted every one of you.
Yes, they did say that.
Yeah.
Do you remember any stories that were told about Mom and Dad?
I remember Mom and Dad talking about when they were first married, that they lived on oatmeal for weeks. And they loved it up in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because they were away from family until Dad got pneumonia, and then his boss actually came to the hospital and fired him because he was so sick. And I think that's when they moved back, and he started to work for Grandpa.
Do you know how many kids they had when they were up in Norway?
Just Susan and Randy, I believe.
Okay.
I think Barb and Mike were born down here.
Talking about Mom and Dad, and do you have any specific memories about them that stand out in your mind as maybe the specialist memory?
I think they were great parents. They sacrificed an awful lot for us. And I realized that when I went to art class with Mom, and the first class, and she drew something, and I thought, oh my gosh, the talent you have. And with Dad, with his French horn, they gave up a lot to have a big family.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember Dad working 2-3 times jobs at a time, but he was always there for us.
Mm-hmm.
When he wasn't working, he was with us.
Yep.
He didn't go to the bars, he didn't go golfing, or not that he could afford to, but he was always there.
He was. Who would you say you're more like, Dad or Mom?
Mom.
Because?
I'm definitely like Mom. I'm just, first of all, I think I look like her because when I look in the mirror now, I go, oh, Mom, what are you doing in my body? We just got along real well. Our personalities. I mean, I would say as I got older, after I had kids, and then I could really appreciate what she did for us. She was my best friend. We did a lot of things. We went to art class. We did chair caning together. I mean, we just really got along very well. Not so much when I was a teenager, but
Well, it's so good to have those memories as you got older. Did Mom and Dad, either one or both, say anything to you that has really stuck in your mind?
There was one time, I'll never forget this, because it was a night I had religion class, I didn't go to religion class. I was dating Joe, and we went somewhere else, and they found out. And all Dad said was, "I'm so disappointed." They didn't ground me. That's all he had to say. I wished he would have grounded me or done something else, but he said, "I'm so disappointed in you." And that just crushed me.
And any special things from Mom?
From Mom? I know she didn't like Joe when we were dating. And I can remember when we got married and we were leaving at the airport going out to Washington, and she gave me a hug and she said, "You know you can come home anytime." But later they loved Joe, I think, even more than they did me.
They did love Joe.
But when Mom and I went to get paint, when we did our rose mauling together, and we went to get paint, and we had Tim and Max with Matt Hitchcock, the boy I babysat for, with us. And we went to this paint store on Broadway to get this special paint. And this woman had quite the hairdo, and it was kind of up, and the two boys looked at her and they said, "Do you think there's a ball in there?" And Mom and I started laughing, and we couldn't stop. You know how you get the giggles, and we're trying to check out, and we're bursting into, we just kept laughing, and this woman had no clue what we were laughing about.
Well, some of those inside jokes are
Yeah.
really the best.
I remember when we were younger, Mom used to draw, she'd give us a sheet of an old sheet. She'd cut it into squares. I don't know if you remember this, but she'd draw on it an animal or something, and then she'd show us how to do embroidery.
She showed you how to do embroidery.
Wow.
She knew better than to try.
Well, and we'd sit under, I can remember sitting under a tree and doing embroidery, probably barb and stuff like. I mean, those are all good memories
They are
from
good
the
memories.
childhood.
Do you remember anything specific about your birth? Was there any story about when you were born? In what hospital were you born?
I was born at St. Vincent's, and Mom walked across the river to the doctor's office the day before I was born in a snowstorm.
Of course.
That was the story. And the day I was born, Dad went to, Mom was in labor and she needed a toothbrush, so he went across the street to the pharmacy to get a toothbrush, but when he came back, I was there.
Oh, gosh.
So that was the story I heard every year on my birthday.
So your birth date is?
December 3rd. 1950. And Dad told me that only special people like him and I and Holly and Jesus were born in December.
That's nice. What did you feel like and what was your birth order? I guess that's maybe the first question.
I'm number
should ask.
6.
Number 6. And how did it feel like growing up in a family of 12?
It was great. There was never a dull moment. I can remember we'd get up in the morning and we'd have chores to do, and then we'd go, and the neighborhood was full of kids. And we'd play, we'd go down to the gully. During the summer, we'd take cardboard, slide down the hills, the mice would be running. It was great.
Do you remember them telling us never to go there?
Yes. And playing army through the whole neighborhood with our wooden guns. And baseball out in the road.
And VFW?
Oh yes, going swimming at VFW. I can remember they had an age limit to get in at night at a certain time. And Tim was old enough, but I wasn't. So we told them we were twins. And they let us in.
Of all the things that happened when you were a kid, do you have any really fond memories that's kind of stick out in your mind?
I can remember helping the boys with the paper out. I can remember one time Tim was supposed to do dishes. We were standing in the backyard, and I forget what the reason was that he didn't couldn't do the dishes. But he was standing behind Mom and Dad, and I was over here, and they're telling me that Tim's got to do this, and so you have to do dishes tonight. And Tim is behind them going, nah, 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 nah. And I ran over and I bit him.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that. I also remember Joel teasing me, and I had a safety pin and I stuck it right in his arm. And of course, he goes running to Mom with this sticking up. So I got in big trouble for that.
I don't know.
But we had a lot of fun. We had our skates that you had to fasten on, and when those got old, we took them apart and we built scooters and nailed those to the boards.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember Tim and Joel throwing my wicker buggy down the steps to break it so they could get the wheels off for their cart.
Do you wish that you could be a kid again?
Oh, all the time. I feel sorry for the kids these days. I mean, we take our bikes to school, we'd walk to school, walk home. I mean, we had so much fun.
We did.
And kids nowadays just don't have that opportunity. You know, they've got their phones and their tablets and they play. And I put a pickleball court down in the basement. So when the kids come over here, they're not just watching TV. I said, let's go play pickleball. And we go down and we have a lot of fun. But yeah, growing up with 11 brothers or sisters for me, it was great.
For me, it was great too. So when we were kids and our birthday or Christmas would come around, I know you could probably talk about how special those events were for us.
Well, yeah, you stayed in the living room. They turned all the lights out, lit the candles, and then they would call you to come in and sing happy birthday to you. And the one birthday I remember that stands out was things were kind of rough and having a birthday just before Christmas. And Susan had started working, and she took me aside and said, now, you know, Mom, it's really tight, and so you probably aren't going to get a lot for your birthday, so don't act disappointed. And I thought, well, yeah, I can do that. And she had bought me white ice skates.
Oh.
And it was the best surprise ever. I mean, because I was hand-me-downs from Tim and Mike, and I had black ice skates, and I wanted white ice skates so bad. So that was her way of not letting me know that I was going to get something really good.
That's really special.
So that's the one birthday that stands out in my memory.
Remember how old you were?
Probably about, I'd say 8 or 9.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how about Christmas?
Christmas, the one Christmas that stands out to me was when Teresa got that green frog. Walking down the steps and seeing the whole floor would be covered with presents, and that big green frog was sitting there.
Christmas was always very special.
It was always, or the year that Tim and I had measles, and we slept in Mom and Dad's bed. Mom and Dad slept in the living room, and they always put the tree up Christmas Eve. How they did that with everything. And the cats pulled the tree down.
Oh my gosh.
It was just that kind of a Christmas. But they were great. I mean, every time you walk down there
Well, the whole room was
full.
just full of gifts because there were so many of us. And even though we didn't all get a pile of gifts, it looked like it.
And I used to... Mom would take one of us, older kids, with her and go to Prangies. We'd get on the bus and go to Prangies to do Christmas shopping. And then we'd go take turns with her wrapping gifts. as long as it wasn't ours, we would
Mhm.
wrap the other kids' gifts.
Yeah.
Kind of teamwork.
Teamwork. Yeah, those times were so incredibly special.
They were. And I can remember one year the church bringing a box of toilet paper and stuff. Do you remember that?
I remember
and,
when
And Mom was so upset.
there were toys from St.
Oh, that too. And she wouldn't.
No.
She said, there are people that need these way more than we do.
And I was so disappointed because I saw it was in the box and I was like, I want that. No, they sent them back.
Yeah, they sent them back. They said, we don't need these. Give them to someone who needs them.
Yeah. But I really wanted those toys. They sent them back. Let's talk about our siblings.
Okay.
Who do you say you were the closest to when you were growing up?
Growing up, I was very close with Sue. Barb and I were kind of close. I guess Tim and I were close. Not so much with the younger kids because by the time they were growing up, I was dating, so I had no interest in what they were doing. So
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
it does.
Can you tell me a little story about each of our siblings?
I'll try. Susan, I remember, she was such a sweetheart, such a good person. She, her first job, she bought Mom her china and silver. I mean, she was just such a giving person. I can remember when Joe and I, after we got married and we were out in Washington, her and her husband Joe sent us a care package with a TV, which was wonderful. I mean, she was just such a giving, loving person. I can remember when she broke her collarbone skating, just bits and pieces. But yeah, she was just the best.
She was the best.
Yeah. And Randy, I don't have a lot of good memories with Randy, I'm afraid to say. Love him, he's my brother, but that's about... I do remember when he was younger, and maybe this is why he's the way he is, but he had this red bike and he was in an accident and had a concussion. And I remember that. I remember him bringing home a bike for us girls. Do you remember that?
Well,
When he worked at the A&W.
He always tells me he did. The bike that we got.
He did bring a bike home, and we had it, but there was something with that because I can remember hearing Mom and Dad, they were not happy with him.
Was that the blue bike that we
The
had?
blue bike.
I thought we got that for Christmas.
The one that you and I were riding on. Do you remember that?
I do remember that very, very vividly. But you can tell the story.
We had this bike and Sally was riding on the back and we were going up the hill in gravel and it tipped over and she landed on her face and my knees got pretty banged up. So I said, Sally, take the bike, you go home, you're in worse shape than me. So you went home. By the time I got home, you have Mercurochrome, Mama had put it on your face. And she looked at me and she said, what about you? I said, I'm fine. My knees, I still have the scars from that. But I just washed them up. I thought, I'm not putting that stuff on me, that burns.
It was nasty stuff.
It was nasty.
I thought that bike, we got it for Christmas. So Randy did buy it. And he tells
did.
that story quite often, that he worked the whole year, the whole summer at A&W.
He did, but
there might be something.
There was an undertone with that. I'm
Okay.
not sure exactly what. And Barb, I can remember her and I took a trip to Two Rivers to go camping.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to put the tent up with our little tack hammer. I mean, we never went camping before, so some people came over to help us. Well, we rented the tent from Earl's Awning, and they gave us the tent with the wrong poles. So we're trying to put this tent up. Well, a family in the next, they came over to help us, brought a bigger hammer, and they finally got it where it would work, but you had to crawl in and go around poles, and we got up the next day, and of course we had to drive into town to use the bathroom because we weren't going to use the outhouses. And then we spent the day walking on the beach. It was beautiful, and Barb got burnt to a crisp, even the tops of her feet. So that's my big, and we drove in we went to the movies, to a drive-in while we were there. But yeah, every morning and every night we'd go find a gas station and get cleaned up.
It's great to have those memories.
And I can remember driving with her. She was driving, and we got in an accident. She rear-ended someone, and he got out of the car, and he was about 10 feet tall. That's how he looked. It was Gary Knaffel from the Packers.
Oh, wow.
So after that, I did not want to learn how to drive. I mean, it really scared me.
Mm-hmm.
But I did learn.
Yes, you did.
So, and let's see, Mike. I remember Mike. I don't know how this happened, but he was he was down in Chicago, home, and he was home. And he was in the bedroom, and I was in the girls' bedroom. And somehow, the phones, I don't know how it happened, but we were on the phone talking to each other. I thought he was still down in Chicago. He's in the next bedroom. Where are you? Do you need help, Beth? No, I'm in bed. Where are you? I'm in bed. In Chicago? No, I'm at home. And I don't know how that happened.
We had the phone upstairs.
Oh, well, we each had phones, the phones in the bedroom. There was one time that and this maybe was what happened, was I was on the phone with Joe and I fell asleep.
Mm.
So, and they were connected. They could not use their phone because we were connected at this end. So maybe that was what happened, and for some reason, Michael must have picked up the phone, and I had the phone, and I heard his voice. So maybe that's when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I just heard the next morning, Joe said, nobody could call us.
That's funny.
So.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, and Tim, I already told the stories about biting him and being his twin.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
I used to help the boys with their paper out, which was always fun, and they'd give us like a quarter.
Yeah, that was in the wintertime.
Yeah.
That was no fun. That was no fun at all.
No.
So Tim, and then
Me
you.
and Joel. I can remember Joel. My first memories of Joel was every time Mom would have a baby and they'd say it's a girl, he would, when he was older, probably not for you because you were so close, but as he got older with Teresa, Pam, and Holly, he cried and he wouldn't look at the baby. He was so mad that he didn't have a little brother. And it would take him a couple weeks, and then he'd come around and he'd be okay. But this happened every time.
Yeah, well, deja vu.
Yeah.
There was the same way.
And then there's Sally and our ride on the bike.
Yes, yes.
And I remember you wanted to try out at St. Norbert's.
Yes.
And I took you there, and I saw all these other kids, and they were trained in piano, had dancing lessons, and were all dressed to the hilt, and I took you home.
Yeah.
And you probably never forgave me for that, but I thought I was protecting you.
You were protecting me. But I always thought, I know I had the sores on my face.
Yes, you did still have
but
those.
I always thought by the time they put on the show, the sores will be gone. And because I don't have piano, I could learn that little stick that they had to do.
Yeah.
And because I wanted it so bad,
I know you did. I know you
could
did. And when I saw all these other kids, and I looked at you with your scabs, I thought, let's just go home, Sally. It's not a good idea.
Don't you think it's interesting that Mom let us go?
No,
With me looking the way I did?
because you wanted it.
I did want it. I wanted it so bad.
If we wanted things, they were pretty good at letting us. Especially after we were married, Mom and Dad never interfered.
No.
Never. Even if they thought we were doing. I can remember I got a ticket right after we bought our house on Volker Street. And I was driving on Libel, and there was a school bus stopped. And I'm thinking, do I have to stop? No, I don't think I do on this side. So I drove slowly, inches past, and there was a cop behind the school bus. And he came, and I got a ticket, and I cried, and Jenny and Tim are in the back seat crying because we just bought a house. And it was $150, which was a lot in those days. So I left there, and I went to Mom and Dad's before I told Joe. And I said, I need your help. And they were both, what's wrong? And I said, and then I explained what happened. And Dad says, oh my God, he said, I thought you were getting a divorce or something. So they lent me the money to pay the ticket so I could pay it before I told Joe what happened. And then we paid it back right away.
Nice. Yeah, they were really...
But they were always there for us if we needed them.
They were. Yeah, they absolutely were.
Yep. So, Sally, Joel.
Mary Jo.
Mary Jo. Not many stories about Mary Jo. I do remember when we went to paint at Mom and Dad's up north. And she was painting, and she got up the ladder and stepped into the paint. And they were the only shoes she had to wear. And we didn't want Mom and Dad to know that she did it. So she's got her shoe in the bathroom, and she's washing it off. And then we went out for breakfast the next morning with her wet, soggy shoes. And also that day when we were getting ready to paint, we broke one of Mom's china dishes, which was terrible.
It was terrible.
And Holly was in there, what was that? Nothing. And Mom and Dad were sitting outside. We hid the plate, took it home with us, and we went online and we found a set and bought them. Brought them back up to Mom and Dad, and Mary Jo got down in front of Dad and she said, I have to make a confession. Another time Dad was scared to death. And then we told him, and Mom said, we never would have known. You didn't have to do this, but yes, we did.
Maybe you would have known.
So I have part of the set in my hutch there. I kept a saucer and a cup.
Missy has the whole set now.
Yeah.
I had it for a long time because I put my name on it.
Yeah.
But then it occurred to me, Missy should really have this. Her mother bought the china frame, and so I should have kept a plate or two, but I guess I could go online and pick one up if I wanted
bet
to.
if you asked Missy, she'd give you one.
Yeah, maybe.
So, and then Teresa, the only memory I have of Teresa was I walked with her when she was probably about 2 or 3, probably 3, for whatever reason. I walked to the new St. Joe's, the new school there, to go to church, and walked home with her. And of course, she got tired, and I carried her for blocks. I can remember carrying her. And I can remember also dressing her up with our doll clothes when she was little.
She was a cute little girl.
Yes, she was.
She's still pretty darn cute.
And her wedding was something special with her flowers. And the pictures the next day, the family pictures, and she still had her crown of flowers.
Yes, she did.
So, and of course Pam, special. She was such a little peanut, walking around with her diapers and her marbles falling out. She used to be in that little rocking cradle, and she'd reach up and pull at their blankets. She was just such a tiny little thing.
And she was about 6 months old.
Yeah.
She was still in that cradle.
Yeah. She was teeny tiny. And then when she was diagnosed with diabetes, that probably was one of the worst diagnoses Mom could have ever heard. Boy, that little girl, giving her those shots. And then I think we took turns sleeping with her at night, so if she had a reaction, waking up and bringing her to Mom and getting the orange juice in her.
And she went into convulsions
a lot. Well, her blood sugar would switch.
Well, I think she was diabetic from the day she was born.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the history is because of Aunt Beth.
Right.
Aunt Beth
that was the worst diagnosis Mom could have heard. I mean, and then Mary Jo getting it right after.
Well, Mary Jo had it first. She got her diagnosis first, and then Mom said, this one has the same.
I thought it was just the opposite. That's how I remember it was. Pam was diagnosed first, and then Mom said, I think she has it too. But it could be the other way.
Well, it just didn't matter because it was so
74
close.
Years ago. Well, it's not 74, but that's
it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
Hard to sort those things out.
But yeah, I can remember Pam when Mom and Dad were in New York. Pam was home. They were on 4th Street. And she had recently heard that she was having issues with her eyes from her diabetes. And she got drunk and proceeded to walk around the block. And some students picked her up. She went to the emergency room, and I got called, and I went there, and she was sobered up, and she's telling me, about her eyes, and then we get her home, and I said, now you have to tell Mom and Dad about this. And she said, I'm not telling them. I said, well, you either tell them or I'm going to tell them because they have to know. And she told them. Of course, she didn't get punished because she was Pam.
Yeah. Yeah, she was Pam.
She was Pam. Yeah.
It's been the same her whole entire life. Yeah. She's always been a pistol, and which is good because that's what has kept her going.
Well, yeah, Mom would take her to kindergarten and she'd come home. So Mom kept her home another year, and then she'd send her and she'd walk home from Lincoln School.
Yeah. She didn't like school.
No.
And of course our dear sister Holly.
Oh, Holly Bear. Yeah.
That's a hard one.
That's a hard one. She was so special. Such a blessing to our family. I can remember Dad coming home, and that's the first time I saw Dad cry, telling us, that she had Down syndrome, and of course you didn't know what to expect. None of us did. But she was just such a sweet, sweet baby. And I can remember the first time she laughed, and I told Mom, and Mom said, oh, I don't know, I don't think it was, but it was that wonderful laugh.
Well, I remember not thinking any different about her than any of the other babies.
Yeah.
And so, to me, she was, I don't know if I didn't understand the concept or whatever, but I didn't treat her any different than any of the others.
You didn't treat her different, but every time she did something,
it was a big deal.
A big deal. A real big deal. When she'd stand up even and sit in that playpen. Dancing. What was that song that she...
Oh, what a day for a daydream.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. And then was it you and Pam that taught her how to get out?
It was Teresa and Pam. I never could do such a thing.
Taught her how to lift up the thing and crawl out. And she was a wanderer. The fence did not keep her in. She'd climb the fence. I remember Dad bought a new front door, and I can remember him getting it all done, locked it. There, she can't get out of that. And not even an hour later, she's over there, unhooked it, unlocked it, and she had the door open.
Well, yeah. And she had quite a few adventures.
She did. And it wasn't because she wasn't being watched. She was fast.
She was fast. And you'd think she was playing out in the backyard, so you would go in to go to the bathroom, not worrying about her.
Yeah.
And when you came back...
She'd climb over the fence and be blocks away. Nick Novosa brought her home one time, and Mom was not happy.
Yeah. Remember the time she went to the store?
Oh, yeah. Were you the ones, you and whoever went to the store and had your feet in the coolers on that real hot day?
That was me and Mary Jo.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. We did, and we got kicked out of the store.
Yeah. And did Holly come home with a loaf of bread?
And a candy bar.
And a candy bar.
She did.
Oh, yeah, she was. When she lived with us, one moment that stands out was when Shelley was living with us and Will, and we were doing something, watching TV, and Shelley said, "Oh, I'm so tired, you're going to have to carry me." And she looked at Will and she said, "Good luck with that." And we laughed so hard. I mean, she was just such a...
She was a dear.
And she was starting to get the dementia at that point. And we'd start talking about Will and Shelley's wedding, and she'd go, "You're getting married?" "Yeah." Like, and then she'd, "Oh, that's so..." And then an hour later, "You're getting married?" And, just, oh. That was hard when that started.
Mm-hmm. That whole thing was...
That was hard. That was very hard. Joe was so good with her, and... it got to the point I just couldn't physically and emotionally do it anymore. She was having not real seizures, but they were like a seizure. She did have a seizure at one point in her bedroom, but she'd be walking and just all of a sudden, and the doctor said that he thought putting a pacemaker in. But at that point I said, "Is this life or death, or you know what? Is anything going to get worse?" He said, "No, it would just maybe give her more energy." Well, at that point, she was in the wheelchair most of the time. And I said, "No, I don't think we're going to do that." I put her through a surgery of any kind. No. And then they got a wheelchair for her when she finally was at the group home, and they were so good with her there. But they got her a new wheelchair. And I told them when they got it, I said, "Now make sure that it can lean back, because otherwise she's going to be leaning forward." And they didn't. So she was in this chair, and it got to the point where she was always almost folded over. So that they got through Brown County. So we hadn't used her Medicare. And when I was at the group home, one of the boys who had CP real bad had this real nice chair that it would sit up or you could adjust it back. And I said, "That's what she needs." So we went through Medicare and got her that. And she got in that chair, and I thought, "Oh, I hope this doesn't scare her now when they move her back." And they pulled her back, and she just, it was like, oh, she just relaxed. Mm-hmm. But when we took her to the group home and we showed her everything, and this is your room, she looked at me and she said, "You're the best." And that meant so much to me, because that was so hard to do. Yeah. To have her, go there. But I couldn't handle her anymore. I couldn't. She'd get on the floor, and we couldn't get her up. And Joe's back. So...
Yeah. You did amazing.
That was
with her.
Well, wonderful. And when I took her, when she first started with the dementia, I had her tested. The doctor said, "Your parents did a wonderful job with her." which they did. We all did. I said, well, she had lots of
support.
Yeah. But she used to she'd come to work with me, and she'd go through the office and call coffee break, and she'd work on puzzles, or we'd have her doing envelopes and stuff. There was stuff that she could do there. And Bishop Bob and her made quite the connection. And he would get gifts, and he never kept anything that he got, and he kept giving them to her. And finally I told him, don't give her anything else. She has no more room for these stuffed animals.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was tough.
It was tough with Susan too.
Yeah.
It was really hard.
Yeah. To lose our oldest sister and our youngest sister. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? And do the same thing.
Yeah.
But, now we just look at each other and say who's going to be next.
Yeah.
Well, however, as
we're at that age.
Your memory is going for age, but when it happens to us, we're always like, ew.
Yeah. Well, I've got the kids. I told John, I've got John and Will are in charge of medical, because I know that they'll pull the plug if they have to. I said, I do not want to. And I said, if I get like Grandma was in dementia, I said, put me in a place. There's money there for that. I said, I don't want to go to any of your homes, that, or take me out to Washington where it's assisted suicide is okay, and put a pillow over my head and be done with me. Of course, they were not impressed. But Jennifer could not make that decision because of her religious beliefs. And I didn't want her to have to. And she thanked me. So, but I told the boys, I said, I know you'll be able to pull the plug where she can't.
Well, and who wants to be in that state?
Exactly.
Where you're just...
Well, that was when Holly went into the hospital with pneumonia, and they wanted to put her on a ventilator. And at that point, her quality of life was so bad. She didn't know anybody. She was having trouble with bowel movements. They had to give her enemas all the time. And I said, no. So we're not going to put her through that.
That was a right decision.
Well, it was a tough decision, but I thought, she was scared to death just being in the hospital. And they put the IV in, and it was terrible. I just couldn't imagine them. Of course, they'd put her out, but why drag it out for...
It's a terrible thing.
And we had a DNR on her. And I told them, I said, no, she has a DNR, and we're not going to do that. But yeah, that was hard to say goodbye.
It was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
But do you remember that all of us were there?
Yeah.
All of us were there.
We were all there playing Elvis.
Yes.
And how her color got better.
And then we played that little game where one would sit there and one would sit there, and we all take a turn.
So we could sit by her.
Yeah.
That was a long couple days.
It was. But, in the shadow of death, there's always the light, because we were with each other and drawing together.
And she was with Mom and Dad again.
Yes.
And with Eileen Mary and Peter Bryan. But yeah, that was tough.
It was tough. I think when we lost Mom and Dad, that was terrible and hard. But losing a sibling is much more difficult. At least for me. Losing a sibling was much more difficult.
Well, Mom and Dad was very hard because it was so sudden.
Yes.
Mom, it was a blessing. when she finally went, because her quality of life was not good. Mm-hmm. I can remember when Tim and I had to bring her there. Pam had her for 8 months, and Tim and I kept telling Pam, we'll get a place, and Pam insisted, no, I can do this, because Mom had taken such good care of her. She was going to do that for her. Mm-hmm. And Tim was down in Florida, and Pam called me and said, I can't do this anymore. And I said, I know, Pam, but now we have to wait for Tim to get back from Florida because he's power of attorney. So I went around to all the places, and Angel's Touch was just the only place that I walked into that did not smell like urine, first of all. And it just was so homey. And so Tim got back, and we got her in there. They happened to have a room, and we got her all set up. And then Tim and I told Pam, we'll take her over there, so you don't have to. So we got Mom in the car, and we took her over there, and we went inside, and we're showing her, this is your new apartment. And Dad had all this set up and took good care of you, Mom. And then we went to the cafeteria part, and we're showing her this, and she looks at us and she says, is this an old folks home? No, Mom, it's called assisted living.
Isn't that something?
It was. So, and then we had to leave her there, and they suggested don't go back for a week or so, which we didn't. And she struggled at first, but I can remember walking in one day, and she was by the front door with her walker. She looked at me and she said, oh, I'm so glad you're here. I've been waiting to see you. And that meant so, I don't know who she thought I was, but it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
And one time, too, when I was sitting in her room with her, and she said she loved her room. It just, oh, thank you, Mom.
It was a very nice room.
I needed to hear that.
It was a very nice room.
Yeah.
It was very homey.
Yeah.
She was able to put a dresser in there. And
they took good care of her.
Seat, and they did take good care of her. So let's switch gears and go back to siblings and think about, like, who do you think was the most talkative?
The most talkative? Probably Teresa. Comes to my mind for some reason.
I know the answer to this one, but who was the worst roommate?
I'm sorry, Sally, but do you remember the day
I do.
Poor Mom, that I was throwing all your clothes down the steps?
I do.
Well, I was neat and tidy, and you weren't.
I wasn't.
And you used to sneak my clothes, then you'd hang them back up, dirty.
I did. Well.
So yeah, I'm throwing all her clothes down the steps, and Mom said, well, what's going on?
Beth was just frustrated.
I was just frustrated.
She brought a beautiful bedroom set with curtains that matched it, and that was all very feminine and very nice, and then
they wouldn't make the bed. They wouldn't pick up after themselves.
Yeah, I was not a good roommate.
Do you remember painting each other's toenails while we were sleeping?
I'm sure we did, but no, I don't. And I'm sure I did a terrible job on your toenails. It's the thought that counts. Yeah. Well, there were good memories.
I think we did it for Barb. I think, I don't know who it was. I thought it was you and I painted her big toenail red.
Possible.
I think we did.
Who do you think had the most fun in high school?
Tim.
Because he ran too fast.
Yes, the story. When he played basketball and he came home and he was drunk, and you and I got him up into the bedroom and he's puking, and Mom comes out, what's going on? He ran too much at the basketball game and he got sick.
Yes.
Mike probably had fun too, though, I bet.
And Joel had fun.
Oh, yes, Joel had fun. I can remember being at a school dance and he comes walking in drunker than a skunk. Speaking of skunks, do you remember when Mom used to call us skunks
Sons
of
of
misery?
And pot lickers?
Yes.
She never swore, but she called us pot lickers and skunks of misery.
Yes, and when we heard that, we knew we were in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And who of all of us had the worst temper?
Mary Jo. She still does.
She still does.
Yeah.
Did you have a best friend when you were growing up that was not a sibling?
I did. Mary Bray. Her dad had died when she was in high school, and we got very close. When Joe and I were out in Washington, she came out and visited us.
Nice.
And Carol Hammond, who was in high school with us, had moved to Alaska, and her husband was a fisherman, and they'd come down to Seattle. So all three of us were there at one time.
Oh, nice.
And Carolyn was pregnant out to here, and she was about 4'8" maybe, just a tiny little. She used to date Dave Jansen.
Oh, really?
Before they moved, yeah.
Mm.
Dave told me he broke his heart. She broke his heart, yeah. But yeah, she was my best friend.
That's nice. What schools did you go to?
I went to Lincoln School for kindergarten, and then Old St. Joe's School till, I don't know when, probably 5th or 6th grade. 6th grade, I think we moved over to the new school.
Mm-hmm. And what were your favorite subjects?
My favorite subject? I really did not like school. My favorites in high school was home ec and sewing class.
Mm-hmm.
The other classes I was not. I was terrible in math. That I hated. I can remember I was failing in algebra. I sat next to the smartest kid in school, and he would help me with my algebra. And then we moved seats around, and if there was one more semester, I would have flunked. But I managed to squeak through that class.
Who was your teacher?
I don't know who the teacher was for math.
It wasn't Mrs. Beckman.
It might have been.
Because she was the teacher when Mom and Dad were at school.
Yeah.
She was the algebra teacher.
Well, I don't know who it was, but I did not like that class.
Neither did I. Did you have a teacher that you were particularly
I did.
fond of?
In 6th grade, Sister Emma Joseph. Do you remember her? Do you remember her?
Oh.
Yeah. Big dimples. She used to put chocolates in she was trying to get me to be a nun. So she would put chocolate in my desk. And
oh my gosh, Beth. Wow.
She was strict.
She was not my favorite teacher.
She's really the only teacher that I remember well, because she put chocolate back in my desk. So she was cool.
I can't. What year did you graduate?
In 69.
I know this answer, but what did you do after school, and did you ever think of going to college?
No. I did not like school at all. After school, I graduated in 69, and I got married in 69. Joe called. He was in basic training, and he called and said, I have leave. I'll be home in December. And I got off the phone and called Father Peters, and I said, we're going to get married, and what do you have between this time and this time? And he had December 22nd, and I think it was a Monday night. And I said, that'll work. And I said, do I have to wear a long dress? And he said, no, you can wear a swimming suit if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then I went downstairs, and I told Mom and Dad, Joe called, and he's coming home in December, and we're getting married Monday, December 22nd at 6:30. And everybody was sitting around the table, and there was silence. And then Dad says, I can get a deal on the invitations. That's all he could say. And they insisted that we have a dinner, which we had at the Chatter House, but I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to get married and be with Joe, because it was during the Vietnam War. We didn't know what was going to happen. Right. You know, if he went to Vietnam, I wanted to be his wife. And that's, but.
Tell us about your wedding.
Our wedding was very small. It snowed that night. It was beautiful. I remember shopping with Mom and seeing the dress I wanted. It was kind of an off-white, short, mini dress. And I said, this would work for my wedding, right, Mom? And she said, yeah, that'll be nice. And I can remember getting ready. You stood up. Barb didn't, because she was pregnant at the time. You were my maid of honor. And Bob was the best man. They wore their uniforms. And I can remember being so nervous, and Joe telling me afterwards that he was nervous until I got up there and put my arm on him. I was shaking so much. He said then my nerves were gone because you were nervous enough for both of us. But it was very small, just what I wanted. And we walked outside afterwards. It was snowing and it was beautiful, big white flakes. We went to the Chatter House. We had to have a dinner because everyone will think you're pregnant if we don't, that you had to get married.
Well, you didn't have to get married.
I didn't.
You did, because you loved each other so much that you couldn't
but I wasn't pregnant.
But you were not pregnant.
No, and Grandma Smits even asked Mom after we left when the baby was due.
Well, what a surprise that Grandma would ask that.
Yes.
How did you and Joe meet?
We met at a school dance. Carol Hammond, who was Dave Jansen's girlfriend at the time, her and I went to the dance. Dave came, and of course I was the third wheel. So Dave convinced Joe to take me home. Okay. And he didn't realize he had to walk all the way. Then we were at St. Mary's in East De Pere, and he had to walk all the way to Oak Street. And the second date we had, he picked me up with, I think there were 2 or 3 other guys in the car, and I can remember Dad was not thrilled. And we went to dance at Premontre.
Okay.
But we knew pretty much right from the beginning that, see, I had dated Bob Miner. I don't know if you remember him, but I dated him from freshman to through sophomore, probably into my junior year. And he was getting very serious, and I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with him. So I broke up with him, and then I met Joe, and it was meant to be.
Would you say it was one of the most romantic things in your life?
One of the most romantic things was after we got married, we had our honeymoon, Joe's sister arranged a room at the Packer City Motel on Main Street in East Green Bay. A real dive, but it was great for us. So we went there, but I had to work that last week. So Joe took me to work. And when he brought me home that night back to the motel, he had a Christmas tree all set up, and I still have the tree. So nice.
That's really
that
nice.
Was very special.
You got married. After marriage comes children.
Yes.
Tell us about your children. Give us a little flavor of each one.
Well, we had Jennifer out in Washington in 1971. When she was born in the military hospital, you were herded around as a group of pregnant women to all your appointments, and you all got weighed, and then you'd go and see the doctor. So when Joe brought me there, he could not come in with me. So he stayed in the waiting room, and I was in labor for a long time. My water had broke that morning, and it was the only day we had snow in Washington. And Joe had gone to work. My water broke, so he comes home, and I'm in the shower shaving my legs because you don't want to deliver with hairy legs. So he comes home, and he's, "What are you doing?" So anyway, he got me to the hospital, and he's in the waiting room, and I'm in labor. And the big thing I remember, they had to induce at one point, and this male nurse comes in with his meal, and I'm in labor, and he's sitting there eating, and I puked. I'm sorry, but don't bring food in when I'm feeling like this. So, but Jenny was born, and the first time we saw her, her head was up to a point they had to use, she was 9 pounds, 2 ounces. And I said to Joe, "Isn't she beautiful?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "Is her head going to stay like that?" I said, "No, it'll." So.
What did you feel like when your first child was born, Jenny was born?
I was scared to death because we were out in Washington. I didn't have Mom to come and help me or anybody. And I was afraid we were going to leave her, forget we had her, and leave and go grocery shopping, and but we never did. But I can remember when she was a baby, she was such a good baby, but she slept so soundly. I can remember taking a jar of quarters and shaking them, but that's the Sanders in her. But yeah, we were, it was scary, very scary. But.
And Jenny?
And Jenny has grown up to be a very nice, very good person. I'm very proud of her. She's diabetic, which is heartbreaking, but
yeah,
she's got all those kids, and they're wonderful. They're all doing so well. They're good parents. I'm very fortunate. She married a wonderful man, and
yes,
they're doing well. And then Timur, which was heartbreaking.
You waited a long time for Tim.
We did. Jenny was, I can remember going to Dr. Lynn's and Joe and I in the office and saying, we're trying, but I can't get pregnant. And I was on the table in the stirrups, and Dr. Lynn says, "Joe, come here." And he says, "See that? That's where you aim." Oh, so yeah.
7 years?
There was 3 years.
Oh.
There's 7 years between Tim and Will.
Okay.
But it was 3 years between the two older ones.
But we were so used to bam, bam,
well,
bam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And what was Tim like as a little kid?
He was a happy kid. He was a good kid up till middle school, and then he got picked on just terribly at middle school. Then he got in with a group of what they called misfits, a good group of friends, though, in high school. And after high school, he struggled as far as finding a job and what he was going to do, and then he decided the military, which was good for him, the Navy. But then he put in for Pearl Harbor, and Joe and I both said, "Be stateside, so at least we can come and see you." But he wanted to go to Pearl Harbor, and he got his wish and went there, and I think that's when the Depression started, and just never got over it. But Jenny and Max and I went there on his birthday, flew to Hawaii, and we had a party with him. I had made his favorite cake, rhubarb cake, and packed that in the luggage, and we had that, and got to spend some time with him.
That's really nice, special memory.
Yeah. But Yeah, and then he got out early because of his depression. But, so yeah, he just thought he was doing everybody a favor. That was a terrible thing for our family to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard on the boys, really hard on Will. But I'm proud of all of them, that we were able to, it was like when one of us would be down about it, everybody else would take care of you. So, but we went through that, and I think John didn't really grieve the loss until he was his senior year in high school. And then I arranged to have therapy for him, and I went to therapy with him, and I said, you know, John, you were always there for us. You were always strong for us. I said, you saw what we were going through, and you took care of us. I said, now you're finally grieving it. So everybody grieves differently.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was awful.
Yeah. And it impacted everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Yep. And it, you know, Mother's Day comes around and you don't feel like you were a good mother when that happens.
You were one of the best moms.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just not a day I like to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
So, on to Will. So between Will and John, I had a miscarriage. And then Will was born. He had the cord wrapped around his neck. This was the first time Joe got to come in. And they knew he was in distress, and the doctor, by the time he was born, there were like 15 people in the room. And when he finally came out, there was there's blood all over, and they're taking the cord around his neck off, and poor Joe, I don't ever want to do this again.
But he was okay.
He was okay. And as he got older, he was very shy, very, very shy. I can remember before he started school, I took him to a couple classes, and I can remember him reaching for me and I knew I had to leave him there because I had to. And he did okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he took a couple classes at the Y, and little by little but yeah, when Tim passed, that shot him down. So he went through a lot of stuff, and drinking and drugs, and finally we were able to save him. He tried at one point the same thing, but we were able to keep him going. And then he met Michelle, and she's been so good for him. He's been so good for her. So.
What a gift.
And they have a dog named Sandy, who is their baby. So you see the pictures of all my grandchildren. And Sandy's at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then there's my baby John. I had a miscarriage between Will and John. And John was a stinker right from the start. He'd be in the crib bouncing, and he'd be up over the railing. I mean, I'd go to shopping with him, and he'd take off and hide, be in the round things, the clothes racks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he gave us a run for our money. And I can remember being at the doctor's office, and he's opening drawers and over here and over there, and I looked at the doctor and I said, I should have had him when I was younger. He should have been my first. And the doctor said, you might not have had any more. So, and he grew up, joined the Army, and did very well. And After basics, he came home on leave, and it was at Christmas time, and he brought this girl over for Christmas, and we met her that night, and then he said, we're getting married. They had known each other for a year, and Joe didn't say a word. He was very good, and we went on with our Christmas, and after everybody left, Joe said, did I do okay? I said, yes, your face did get a little red, but you did good. And I said, Joe, it reminds me of us.
Yeah.
So John went off to Colorado, and we planned the wedding, and they got married. He came home on leave, got married, and they packed up his little Sunbird and drove off into the sunset. Yeah. So, and they have 2 children.
Nice. So what did we just say is your greatest achievement as a parent?
As a parent? I think both Joe and I as parents, our greatest achievement was surviving Tim's death and holding our family together.
I think so too. If your kids got together and had to say one thing about you, what do you think they would say?
One thing about me? Gee, I don't know. I don't know what they would say.
You have to get together.
I hope they would say that they had a good childhood, considering everything. I hope they have good memories.
What is it like being a grandparent?
It's wonderful. I love it. It's just great because you can send them home. I have a good relationship with all my grandchildren.
How many grandchildren do you have?
I have 7 grandchildren. I have a special relationship with Max because he lived with us for a while. And Joe was his dad, more or less, till he was about 4 years old. And I have a good relationship with Mary Beth. I have a good relationship with all of them.
That's nice.
Zach, who is their third, used to call me Shopko instead of Grandma for whatever reason. I don't know, but they still laugh about that.
Isn't that funny how kids... I remember Jenny used to call Grandma, Joe's mother, Durner.
Yeah, that was... Everybody called her Durner. Because one of the kids... And they used to call Jennifer Jeffner. And that's how Joe got to calling Jenny Jeff. So when Jenny and Jeff dated, they came over the first day, and we met Jeff. And they're leaving, and Joe's by the front door, and they're walking away, and Joe yells out, "Love you, Jeff." And Jeff thought, that was really strange for first meeting. And then Jenny said, he wasn't talking about you, to you. He was talking to me.
Being a grandparent is a pretty special
thing. It is. And when we moved in here, the whole reason we bought it was when I saw it, I told Joe, I said, I want a place where the grandkids can come over and they have room to do stuff, and they aren't going to say, I don't want to go Grandma's, there's nothing to do. So the basement, the first Christmas we had, I painted the whole basement, and I got a foosball table and ping pong table and stuff in the basement for them. And they have more fun in that basement, running around. They brought all their Nerf guns over. They're all down there. And I've got 2 big boxes full of bullets, and we have Nerf wars down there.
Nice.
So
you also have girl nights, don't you?
Oh yes, the girls come and spend their night, and we have good times. In fact, the last time they came, Juno, Grandma, can we go in your closet and pick out your clothes for tomorrow? Sure, maybe. So they picked out my outfit for the Sunday morning. And that's the morning that the guy grabbed my arm. Oh. So I told them, I said, you made me look too good.
Funny. So. Well, I'm so glad that you have such a wonderful relationship with all your grandchildren. I think that most grandparents, the experience is really awesome and wonderful. So throughout the years, who have been your closest friends?
I'm probably right now closest to Pam because we have a connection with and that's one of my achievements was convincing Pam to take my kidney. It took a lot of talking. Mm-hmm. She was not gonna, and I looked up all the statistics, and I was 69 at the time, and I said, Pam, we either do it now or I'm gonna get too old and I won't be able to. And she was, no, I'm not gonna. And I said, Pam, if it was reversed, would you want to give me your kidney? And she said, well, absolutely. I said, okay. And then that was what convinced her.
Yeah, because she had said, I'm not taking it from anybody.
She wouldn't. And I couldn't do it before that because of what Joe was going through. Mm-hmm. So.
What a gift you gave her.
Well, I was just glad that she allowed me to do that.
It was quite an ordeal, wasn't it? The testing before.
Oh, the testing before. And it was during COVID, which dragged it out to a ridiculous amount. And the testing was intense. Mm-hmm. But I tested good. I was thankful that I was healthy enough to do it. Mm-hmm. The actual surgery, it was Thursday, and I went home Friday morning. I was fine.
That's pretty amazing, actually.
So, and I haven't had any side effects. I don't even notice any difference. They said my blood pressure might be high, but I've always had low blood pressure, and I didn't notice any change in that. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, so high for us is like 120.
Oh, yeah.
So
I remember a story about the two of you. Do you remember the time you were at my house? We lived on McCormick Street. You had just had Tyler.
I do remember that.
And you were so happy with him, and he was such a good baby, and she's holding you, and all of a sudden we hear this noise. And Sally's, isn't that cute? And she pulls you away, and she's covered with shit.
And I hadn't planned to bring any extra clothes.
And I can remember laughing, oh yeah, Sally, that's so cute.
Yes, I remember that very vividly. He was holding that. That's so cute.
Do you remember when you lived with us for a while?
I do.
And you were dating Brad?
I do.
And you'd lay on our living room floor while we're trying to watch TV, and these two are making out. Joe, go to your room.
Mm-hmm. We did.
You did.
Yeah. We didn't do anything. Oh. We were making ornaments up there.
Yeah.
We were making ornaments. So you got out of high school and you got married. Yeah. That was not an unusual thing in our family because that's kind of what we were. That was normal. But after that, you did go into the workforce.
I went back to school. Well, I babysat for kids for many years. And I went back to school. I was probably, let me think, in my 40s when I went back to TC. I took a administrative assistant class. And I completed the course. It was 98 because it was the year Tim died that I went back to school. And he passed in February. I still had a whole semester to do. And I took 2 weeks off after that. And then the boys did too, and finally Joe and I both said we have to go back to work, and you kids have to go back to school. Well, then I had to go back to school too to set a good example. And I did go back to school, back to class, and I was able to graduate. In fact, I got Student of the Year.
That's awesome.
For that program.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked at a real estate office for probably a year and a half maybe, and then I saw the ad for Resurrection, and I went there and was parish secretary, which was a good move for me.
Mm-hmm.
Good support system there. Father Paul had done Tim's funeral, so he knew what I had been through, and it just helped.
Of all your jobs, what would you say would be your favorite?
Probably at Resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
I worked there for 13 years.
A long time.
Well, and the reason I went back to school was I was taking a typing course at home, thinking of going back to school. And just being on the computer, not having done that much before. And Max was probably about 4. And I did something. Now what do I do, Max? I can't get out of this. And he comes over. I thought I better go back to school.
Do you have a motto?
I do. Let go and let God. Ever since Tim, because after Tim passed, I wanted to keep those boys home. I didn't want them to leave. I didn't want them to go anywhere. But you couldn't do that. So when they'd be out and they wouldn't be home on time or gone, I had to learn to let go and let God. Otherwise, I would have gone crazy. So.
It's a great motto.
Well, it's, when there's situations that you can't control, you just have to let go.
Has anybody ever played a prank on you?
A prank on me? Yes, my husband did. One time when I was in the shower, he took some cup of cold water, poured it over. So I told him, I said, you're going to pay for that, but you won't know when. Mm-hmm. So one morning, he was sound asleep in bed, and I poured a cup of cold water over him.
If you could choose any talents to have, what would they be? Talents to have. You have lots of talents. Oh. So, but if you have any that you thought this would be really nice.
I always thought it would be nice to be able to play a musical instrument. I can't read a note for anything, but I love music. So yeah, I always thought it would be neat to be able to do that.
Did you ever have a celebrity crush?
A celebrity crush?
Mm-hmm.
I like Neil Diamond. I've always liked his music.
Yeah, Neil Diamond is awesome.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I went to see The Beautiful Sound last night at the PAC, and it was all about Neil Diamond's story.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. Really good.
Of course, when I was younger, it was the Beatles. George Harrison was my favorite.
The Beatles were amazing.
I like their music.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say are your favorite hobbies or interests?
Favorite hobbies? Well, it used to be sewing. I used to do a lot of sewing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have plants. I told the kids those are my pets because they wanted after Joe passed. Do you want a dog? No, I don't want a dog. I'd love a dog. I'd love a cat. I wouldn't love a cat, but I'd love a dog. But I don't want everything that goes with it. Mm-hmm. And not being able to drive. I want to keep my independence. I don't want to have to call the kids and say, the dog's sick, you have to take me to the vets, or, it just adds that much more on them. Mm-hmm. So as it is now, I've got my dentist across Webster right over here. I go to the Webster Clinic for my doctor. And I can walk. So That's how I keep my independence. Not that the kids wouldn't do it, they would, but I don't want to have to ask.
Mm-hmm. What kinds of things do you do besides taking care of your plants to keep busy?
To keep busy, I do puzzles during the winter. During the summer, I walk. I'll walk the trail. Joe and I used to walk that, so it's all good memories.
Mm-hmm.
I'll walk to Voyager and sit on his bench and then walk back home.
Would you say your life has turned out different than you expected it to?
No, because I have all of Joe's letters from when he was in the service, and he saved all of my letters. And after he passed, I took them all out and read through all the letters. And I would say everything we wanted, we got, except I wish Joe was still here. But we had a good life, had a good marriage. A lot of people don't get that.
Mm-hmm. If you could ask Mom or Dad one question, what would it be?
One question?
Mm-hmm.
Would probably be, how did you do it? How did you manage? Because we all have such different personalities, Sally. Our whole family.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow they managed to make a happy home and keep us from killing each other. You know, they did such a good job.
They did. They absolutely did.
And after you get married and you have kids of your own, you appreciate it even that much more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they went through a lot. They lost 2 infants.
They did.
You know, and I can remember when they were taking in foster kids, and Jim Bob, that was so hard when he left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, imagine they had that many children and they did foster care besides.
And one of the Dillhuns stayed with us for a while too.
What would you like future generations to know about you?
About me?
Mm-hmm.
I hope they know that I would like to be known as being gentle, kind, honest, a good person. I tried to live how Christ would want me to live. You know, what would Jesus do? That's how I look at things. Just that I was good.
So you're talking about Jesus. Has faith played a really important part in your life?
It has. I have very strong faith. Not so much Catholic Church faith, although I do go to Mass. I don't necessarily agree with the human side of the church. But as far as my belief in God and that, it's very strong.
Mm-hmm. You die. What's next?
I hope I'll see Joe. Yeah. Sorry. I miss him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that came from. You know, it'll be 6 years in June.
I know. It's hard to believe.
It is. But we had such a good life.
You did.
We were blessed. Even with all the shit that happened, we were blessed.
Mm-hmm. You were a couple that many of us looked at as the best model.
We very seldom fought. We had disagreements, but we just enjoyed being with each other. We didn't go out much. We didn't do things with a lot of other people because we didn't have to. Mm-hmm. We had each other.
Yeah. What great models you were.
Yeah.
And Joe, what a great guy.
Yeah, he was. Right up till the end. When he got sick, of course, a lot of people wanted to come and see him, and he said no. And he insisted. He said, I'm saving all my strength for my family, for my kids. And he did let his brothers and sisters come over. But no friends, no other family. I mean, Pam and Tim came up to the hospital when he was in the hospital when they told him that there's nothing more they could do. And he said, just go in the lounge with them. He said, I don't want, because he said it's not fair that I let them come in and nobody else. He was very private that way. But they had put that tube in his feeding tube, but it wasn't a feeding tube. What it was actually was he was on a liquid diet, and what went in, they had to take out.
Okay.
So how long can you live like that? So he was in the hospital for 10 days, and then in between there, they're moving. We sold our house to John and Jenny. So they're moving into our house with all our stuff there. And after he got out of the hospital, we went to Unity because Joe didn't want their 2 young kids to have to deal with him being so sick. So we went there for 3 weeks, and then he insisted on getting these stupid floors finished because he knew I wouldn't do it after. So we moved in here, and on a Saturday, they put the hospital bed in that front corner, and I slept in a recliner they had brought over. And then that Monday, they brought all our other furniture. In between there, the kids had brought our clothes and the kitchen stuff. And he tooled around here in his wheelchair, pointing, telling everybody, that was on the Monday, where everything should go. And then Tuesday, I could see, his energy level going down, and every day, and he'd eat less and less. And by Sunday morning, Father's Day, he got up and was in the chair, and he was so weak. And John came over, and I said, John, we have to put him in the hospital bed. Up till then, we were sleeping in the bed together. I said, I think we need to get Dad in the hospital bed, which they had moved into our bedroom. And so we got him in there and got him comfortable. And by 9:30, he was gone. And he only was here for a week. But he took darn good care of me. So.
You did have a wonderful relationship.
We did. We were very blessed. But some of that, I think, moving out to Washington when you're first married, away from family, is really a good way to start a marriage. That's when John and Jenny left. I said, you guys are going to treasure these days, hard as they're going to be.
Because just the 2 of you.
Yep.
Kind of facing the world.
Yep. And we did.